How confident were you when you first became a dad with your young new arrival in the world to really engage and embrace, and how did it make you feel? Parental confidence is a big topic that I think goes unchecked quite a little bit. And I often say that they didn't teach dad in school, and what the heck do I do now? Confidence was a big issue, I think, for myself, but also for many, many people that we speak to in our sessions and communities. So it was a great opportunity for me to speak to Bernie Landels, expert in parental confidence. In fact, she's a published author around the topic. And we explore all sorts in this discussion around what we can do better, what opportunities there are, what stops us, historically what went wrong, and what can go right moving forward. So please do enjoy this session. I think you'll get loads out of it. So let's dive in and see what we talked about. So welcome along, welcome back to the Dads in Business video and podcast series, where we invite experts in the field of business, coaching, personal development, all around the topic of being dad and what that means in order to help bring the best of ourselves to home and to work. And I think a big part of certainly what tripped me up in my early days as a parent, or even before I was a parent, was this overarching sense of, I don't know what I'm doing. What do I do now? I often say they don't teach dad in school. And suddenly I'm going to be responsible for this child, this human being. There's obviously the sort of mental side of preparing for that, but also the physical side, and how when they emerge that first time and you think you can't touch them because you'll break them. It's something that I think we can learn better from our experiences before we're a parent, but certainly in those early years. Now, I'm no expert in that space, so I'm delighted that there is one sat next to me over there on the Zoom screen. Bernie Landels is she's a confidence coach around parental skills, and she's soon to be, at the start of March 2022, a published author of a book called Finding Their Feet, which, correct me if I'm wrong, Bernie, explains and helps parents understand how touch and the physical side of being a parent really benefits kids. So if you could introduce yourself better than I just did, that'd be really helpful. And we'll dive into a conversation about touch, development and confidence around that.
Yeah. Thanks, Rob. So first up, I am a mum, 2 boys that have flown the nest. And like many parents out there, I had actually never held a newborn baby until I had my first boy 22 years ago. So, you know, I think there are some parallels there for dads and mums sometimes. So I've been a body worker for over 25 years and teaching infant massage for a fair whack of that. And if we're talking about my book, which is great, thank you for mentioning it, it was a lockdown project last year. It was going to be a book about feet for adults. And then I decided that actually, if I was going to make a change, it was the parents that I actually had to educate around feet, around movement. And, you know, as it transpired, I learned so much in the process. So I didn't know everything that I've written about when I started. And if I think about as I wrote, these waves of guilt came over me, because I was thinking, God, if only I'd known that when I was a parent, my boys wouldn't have had the challenges, or may not have had the challenges that they had growing up with, you know, and most recently anxiety. So they could have been better equipped if they'd had a more resilient physical system. So that's where my passion sort of comes in, is now I know what I know. You know, I can't turn the clock back, but I can help parents going forward.
And then that's a fascinating early sort of insight, and thanks for framing it in that way of you didn't know what you were doing necessarily either. I think there's a certain romance about never understanding fully how the perfect system works. But I guess on a serious note, I've just written it down there, you said guilt. You know, there was a certain amount of guilt as the kids got older. I wondered if you'd mind sort of going into that a little bit more, because I think that might be something that's quite common. I guess the risks to us as parents, if we don't embrace this side of parenting, not only impact the kids, but impact us. And if you don't mind, would you mind unpacking what you mean by guilt a little bit in that context?
Yeah, so Yeah, absolutely, Rob. So I guess the last year, the waves of guilt that I've felt was if I'd known what I knew now back then, I could have made some different choices. But I think too, Rob, what comes to mind when you poke me with that question is, I think as a parent at times, so our youngest son developed strabismus, so the lazy eye, and it's like, well, what did I do? What did I do to cause this? Yeah. Our other son, he was a he was a bedwetter. And it's like, well, what have I done wrong? You know, so there was guilt attached to these certain things. And you think, you know, it wasn't in their genes. Perhaps it was something that I did. And yes, potentially from what I know now, there may have been things in those early days that I could have done better to build their system, because from conception, the brain is building. Yeah. And I didn't, I mean, yeah, we know that. But what does that mean? Yeah. You know, and a lot of conditions that we're seeing, you know, in terms of developmental delays or neurodiversity these days, they stem right back to events or things that did or didn't happen in the physical body. So yeah, I can fully, you know, understand parents, you know, and the guilt. But then it's also the question why. And I think often these days we just get told, you know, do tummy time, do this, do that, put them here, do that, you know, buy this, but not why or why not.
No, I think that question will keep coming back, is why or why not, isn't it? And I guess I can look back at my own experiences, and I think in hindsight, I often find pregnancy itself was quite traumatic for me, but also I guess for us, the missus, she wasn't the best pregnant person. She wasn't particularly she struggled a lot with the sickness throughout, so it was quite a slog. And you know, we didn't know what we were doing. We were the first ones pretty much in our social circle to have kids. My dad wasn't around because he passed away many years ago. My brother, he's older than me, he didn't have kids at the time. So it was very much us, and I think it felt a bit alone. So there was this sense of, what can I do physically to help this pregnant woman who's carrying our child? All eyes and all attention should be on her. I'll take almost like a back seat. And I think it's really interesting, before we start hitting record, that you mentioned there's things that we can do physically during pregnancy as well. And I'd be interested to know what you think, dads, where possible, but more broadly, parents can do physical things beyond that 5 minutes of tummy time at 7 o'clock at night. You know, what else can we do? How can we start to productively and proactively engage more in a physical sense from that very early stage?
Yeah, sure. So if we look very early on, now I'm going to frame this with introducing reflexes. Now, do you know about reflexes?
Only the knee. My knee swings when I tap it, that's all.
Yeah, okay. So reflexes are they're in the hindbrain, the very early brain, and they are how it's like if you go to the gym and you get a personal trainer. Yeah. So the hindbrain is the personal trainer, and it's going to teach the baby everything. Yeah. And so it starts moving the baby, and this is involuntary. And so the baby then starts building neural connections. And this starts really early on in the womb. So if you're talking about, so what can dads do? You know, they can, you know, we say, you know, care for your partner, nurture your partner, that sort of thing. But if you think about the environment that the baby is growing in, you know, it needs to be toxic free. So, you know, nutrition and those sorts of things are really important. But so is movement. Yeah. So where you've got the personal trainer for the baby, teaching the baby how to move, it also needs to experience movement. So going for walks with your partner, getting your partner out of the house, that sort of thing. And that helps start to just develop the vestibular system, which is balance. So from early on, you know, things like ensuring that this environment, that the stress is not too much. You know, I know we need a little bit of stress in life. And if people want to go and Google things like the fear paralysis reflex or the Moro reflex, those are the first two reflexes around fight or flight. Yeah. So it's from about 5.5 weeks through the pregnancy, if something happens, some trauma, that sort of thing, it can affect the baby. Now, and if those two reflexes hang around too long, it stops the cascade of other ones coming out. Yeah. So, you know, thinking about how, I don't know, how relaxed you can be at home, you know, if you're both working still, you know, it's early days, it's hard, but how you can support each other. So it's a two-way relationship. It's not just about the dad supporting the, you know, the partner. It has to be both ways as well.
That's fascinating about the fight or flight reflex. It's sort of ingrained how it's imparted on the stress and anxiety that's in that environment of the family unit at the time.
Yeah,
it's unheard of. No one tells you this
No.
information.
No.
It's unbelievable, and we'll come on to what's missing and why they don't talk about it. I'm sure, because it's something I've got a bit of a bugbear about. But it's from those early years, it's fascinating, isn't it? That because I guess there's a risk that we can feel like a spare part as a man or a dad. It's like, well, I'll go to work, I'll make sure everything's okay, and I'll come home and I'll make sure you're comfortable, and that's me done. But you're saying it is more of a partnership effect, and I think it's that for me goes, I don't know if probably not as far as unspoken about, but it's certainly not addressed in a positive way like it seems you're trying to achieve.
Yeah, I think it's really important. So the focus in my book is around the feet. And so I talk about the feet, how they start off as little paddles on the side of the body, and then they grow into this limb. Now, if you think about the feet, they're the furthest thing from your brain. And all those kicks, so the kicks in the womb, you probably felt those externally. You know, your wife felt them internally.
Yeah.
All those are the baby learning their boundaries, learning how big they are. You know, those kicks and movements are vital. And, you know, so, you know, placing your hand on, talking to them. I just learned at the weekend that sound actually is first heard or felt in the spine. So engaging with the baby in that way, you know, if you understand why, it makes more sense.
I've seen a few documentaries about how babies grow into these amazing humans. It's fascinating how, in what order we grow. It's unbelievable, isn't it? And sound through the spine, super. What a fascinating topic it really is. I mean, let's fast forward to when this little human arrives.
Pop.
And yeah, I remember my first when he arrived and they put him down on the tables. And it's like, do you want to change him? I'm like,
change him into what?
Yeah. So I send him back. Yeah, I was like, I don't know how. I'll break him. And I think I can't, again, that can't just be me. I think there is a real thing where, I watch these nurses and then pulling them up and putting things on. And I remember, I could feel it now. There's always like this sense of dread.
Yeah.
And that's not what you want when you've just got this newborn baby next to you. It's like, I don't want to embarrass myself. I don't want to do it wrong. I don't want to break him. I don't want to hurt him. I'll sit back and I'll let everyone else do what they're doing, and I'll step forward afterwards. Is that something you see in your work and experience as well?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it goes, if I remember the first time I went to change my son, it's like, how do you hold it? Yeah. So I think, I've looked at how the baby develops, and I'm going to use the foot for an example because that's what I know best. Yeah. The foot bones, there's not many of them in that foot when it's born. Yeah. So think about your baby as being sort of just this I'd like to use rubber. You know, the bones aren't connected, there's spaces. So if you, if you bend the leg the wrong way, you're going to cause some damage. But pretty much it's soft and squidgy. Yeah. And what you need to realize is that the baby needs more movement. It's just been in this womb hanging around, and then it got squashed and it hasn't been moving. Pops out, moro reflex, gasp, starts breathing. And then if you as a father could take over the physical development of your child, you know, that's your job, is to build this. Think of it but like, you know, your flashest car you're going to build. Yeah. You need all the parts to be moving, everything in balance. And so handling the baby is, I guess, one of the best ways to build confidence as a dad. Yeah. But also you're helping the baby develop. Yeah. So your big hands are not going to break the baby unless you go like that with the leg. Yeah. Don't do that. All right.
There's things you shouldn't do.
Things you shouldn't do. But to have your big hands on that baby, you know, contacting the skin, there's so many sensory receptors. You are, every time you do that, you're teaching the baby, you're developing their brain. Yeah. So the more hands-on a dad can be, in the physical sense of hands-on, given that, yes, a lot of them have to return to work, you don't get much paternity leave, that sort of thing, is that when you are at home, you know, you are handling, you're I was going to say, throwing them around, moving them, and even massaging. You know, I get really excited when I get a dad coming to an infant massage class. It's like, great, because this is something that you could do. You know, you may not, if, you know, the baby's being breastfed, you may not be able to feed the baby. So what can you do? Well, the physical development I see is one key area that dads can get involved.
Yeah, I mean, that's, you touched the word there, what can I do? Because, you know, they are, yeah, it's not going to change. They are so dependent on their mom at those early stages.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, I don't know, my role probably became one of make sure things are as okay as possible. But in terms of doing anything with the little one, what can I do? He just needs his mom. Yeah. And that, I think, is probably quite a common bit of feedback. Well, I'd assume that there is out there. It must feel a bit like a spare part. And I think that damages and dents confidence. Yeah,
so you felt like a spare part. So did you feel that you developed a good bond or connection, or did that take a little bit of time?
I think it probably took a bit of time. Yeah. It probably took quite a bit of time. And I think now they're almost like they're getting older. At the time we're recording this, they're 7, 5 and 3. Now they can play football. Now they can run around. Now we can play wrestling. Now we can play toys. Now we can do this and that and take them swimming. I feel like I'm coming more into my own now as a dad, which again, you know, can introduce a bit of guilt or, oh God, what else should I have done or could I have done? But I think there was that total unknown, or this like, I am that spare part. Make sure their mom's all right. Make sure that the house is okay. I'll go to work, come back, do this. They don't need me, was almost the perception. Whereas now it's much more fun and engaging. Whereas you're saying there's so much more we can do before that, right? Yeah,
and they need the stimulation. They need, you know, whilst the mother might be, you know, caught up in the, you know, how many times I'm feeding, which breast to feed from, you know, are they sleeping? Am I sleeping? All those sorts of things. You know, to be involved in the physical development of your child can help build that bond and connection. Yeah. And which then builds your confidence. And then when you then start playing football, you can see how they move. You understand their body so much more because you've grown up with it. To give you an example, I was chatting to someone the other day with whose youngest has club feet. So she's 3 now. And I asked about the relationship of this daughter with her father. And the father feels more connected with this child than the other 2 because he was involved, because there was a physical problem. He got involved with the exercises and movement. So to use a not very happy example, but it did show to me that actually, yes, this is something that perhaps is more of a mindset for dads.
So there's almost a happy consequence of the fact he paid more attention, to use the word, to the child who had something not right with them, whereas now they've got a better bond. And you say about mindset for dads. I mean, how can we start to suggest that, I guess, dads should get involved more? Because there might be that perception of, you're pregnant at home, I'm going to work. They're the roles we play during pregnancy. How do we start to break down these barriers or these perceptions and roles that we assume? Because no one thinks anyone's doing anything wrong, I guess. And what you're suggesting is that there is more opportunity to become more of a partnership in this space. So what can we start to do as dads, as family units, maybe as employers? What needs to happen?
Yeah, I think if we talk family unit, obviously communication is a key aspect, but having some more knowledge and understanding, right at the beginning, you said something about there's no dad school, or there's no parent school really. In chatting with other people, they're like, antenatal classes are such a waste of time these days, or the funding's not there, and so the people taking those classes aren't as qualified as they used to be, and as I mentioned, all the parent books I read, none of them talked about the physical development. It's like these stages, this is how it grows. There were some nice pictures, and so could, anatomy 101 on a baby, but why? And what are the things that are important, particularly these days, and especially after the last 2 years, they're seeing a lot more children with developmental needs, neurodiversity, mental health issues, but it has to go back to the physical, the gross motor skills. So all those milestones of head control, sitting, rolling, crawling, walking, all of that has to happen before you can reach fine motor skills, any form of cognitive processing, reading, writing, that sort of thing. And if you think about that, well, how does that relate to mental health? If a child is confident in their body, if everything is in check, then they will be more confident and they will be more resilient. If you think about, if I can give you an example of, you've got your sports car. If one wheel is out of alignment, slightly flat, you sort of feel a bit wobbly when you drive, because I'm an expert in racing cars, of course.
It's about as far as I go with it.
And the tread will wear down differently. You go around a corner and it might pull you the other way. So this is like what it's like to have one of these primitive reflexes hanging around too long. It makes life hard for a child. And at the moment, what's happening is they're getting them at school, and that's where they're putting in the treatment. And the treatment is basically taking them back to doing these primitive reflexes. So I'm like, why wait? Why not do what you can as this baby grows from in utero? The first 2 years are the key ones in terms of brain development and motor skills. It's like, have you ever run a marathon, Rob?
No.
Okay.
I've run 5K before. That's as far as I can go.
If you put walking alongside running a marathon, okay, so you've got your child who's going to walk in about a year, 18 months, something like that, and running a marathon, you would train for perhaps a good 6, 9, 12 months to run that marathon. So if you can think about walking, the lead up to walking is like training. It's getting all the muscles conditioned, all the bones working, all the joints working, all that sort of thing. So you wouldn't go and run a marathon tomorrow.
So don't expect your kids to pick it up as quick.
So thinking about child development in that way is that, once the brainstem's done its job inside, the dads can be the personal trainers. And I'm not saying, military style or anything like that, but just hands on.
Yeah. And I guess you mentioned during that conversation about the past 2 years, i.e. the COVID years, You referenced some developmental issues because of it. How's that showing up? What has happened during COVID? What's becoming more prevalent, do you think?
So if we go back to, now this can be a child at any age, if that fear paralysis reflex, if the Moro reflex are still hanging around, that's your fight or flight. So with, the last couple of years, so if a woman was pregnant and delivered during this time, there's been this unknown around the last 2 years, which has an element of stress to it. There's been other things like people not being able to work or working from home, a changed situation, everybody being at home, schooling from home, stress levels have gone up. So if the those early reflexes to do with the fight or flight are still there, then you don't have such a resilient response. You perhaps don't manage. And so your weakness, your Achilles heel, will be perhaps on that emotional side. Yeah. And you're not coping. You don't cope because you don't have the resources in your body.
It's fascinating. I'm just thinking about how my kids are growing up and their personalities that are coming out. They're so distinct. My oldest is nearly 8 now, for argument's sake. He's nearly 8. He's incredibly anxious. He is absolutely anxious about anything. Such a sensitive yet determined kid. The middle one, he's more, he's getting on with it. He's more your typical boy, if you like. He rolls about in mud and throws himself all over. And the youngest, he's still developing his personality, but at 3 1/4, he is almost 3 1/2 now. The majority of his life has been spent in some form of lockdown. Yeah. So those development years, he's just, it's not going to flush out, is it? How this has impacted for another 5, 7, 10 years, is it, potentially?
Maybe, yeah. We don't know, do we?
Well, yeah, it's just such a strange, unknown entity, isn't it? What I will say is during that time, I, and I'm sure many others in my shoes, spent more time at home than we ever have or probably ever will. And I look back at that summer in 2020 as super. It was great. We spent time together. We were playing in the garden. We were cooking, having baths, all that sort of stuff. And I felt more of the bonding there, which I'm sure is something you've heard a lot of. That now we go back to normal. There's almost this race to go back to what it was before. And I think we have to learn lessons, don't we? And what do you think we can learn? It's a great experiment, if we look at it in one way, a great parental experiment, isn't it? What can we learn from those lockdown months and years that hopefully won't get forgotten?
Absolutely. I think too, and you mentioned employers before, I believe that lockdowns were a positive for the family unit. Yes, there were stresses of, homeschooling and that sort of thing. But for those early years, for a father to be home, for both parents to be home, so you could be more involved. So I guess, should we be open to working from home a little bit more so that you can be part of that? So not necessarily paternal leave, unless I think there's one country that's actually just granted it, haven't they? Belgium or somewhere like that.
I think, equal rights, if you like, or equal leave. Yeah, that's right.
And some of the European countries do that. I think Sweden does. We need to learn from them a little bit more. But to have flexibility where you could work from home, we've shown that over the last 2 years it does work. Yeah. So if you are expecting a baby, then the conversation around, well, okay, I could take X amount of paternity leave, but then I really like to work from home these days a week, so that I can be there for my child, and therefore it's supportive both ways in terms of the family unit. I think that'd be wonderful.
Yeah, it's an interesting perspective on it. It's just as you were talking, I was kind of thinking, well, a lot of the time, the equal paternal leave, if you like, is focused on the benefits of the parents. we'll do this because we can get a more equal workplace. We'll do this because historically the men have only had 2 weeks off, so therefore we'll balance it out and look after their mental health or their career opportunities. It's never often spoke about as the benefit of the kid. This will benefit your child if you have more of an equal paternal leave. It's never mentioned from that perspective. So I'd be interested to hear what employers say if that was put to them.
Yeah.
As a motivator.
But we're not a society, Rob, of prevention. Come on, we're not. You know. What would the outcome be if both parents were able to be home for the first 2 years of life? What sort of being would we create? What sort of human would that be? I'm sure a more regulated one. As long as we're talking about things are okay between the parents, because we know sometimes things go wrong. And I guess that's my take, is that, you know, I could easily just keep putting plasters on people's feet, you know, and their bodies as a body worker. But it's like, for goodness sake, come on, let's actually look at prevention. Why have we got these developmental days? Let's ask why and work back and go, okay, well, if this happened as they were born, and, you know, in those first 2 years, they were stimulated, they were moved, you know, car seats are for cars. So they should stay in the car and you should lift your baby out of the car. Simple things.
I'm guilty of he's sleeping, let's lift.
Guilty.
What a great invention for convenience. But yeah, you're right.
Oh, we've created so many containers for our babies. You know, but the best thing, so my top tip for dads is floor time. Yeah. Flat floor time, and they take charge of floor time. You know, yes, a little bit each day on the tummy, on the back, but they need this blank surface to move. Now, if you put them in a buggy, or if you put them in one of those bassinet things, or you put them in a swing, or you prop them up in one of these things that make them sit before they can sit, you're not helping them develop. So, you know, yes, tummy time, but actually floor time, full stop, is a great place for the baby. You know, and I'm talking about the physical development of the body, but it goes through to the eyes as well for vision. You know, the more floor time they have to lift their head, they start looking close, far away, close, far away.
Like perspectives and everything.
Depth perception, that sort of thing.
Yeah, because again, you know, we're guilty of it. We'd have those little rubber seats that, like you say, force them to sit up, or the swing. So it's always having so much fun. When in reality, we're going, get me on the floor, get me on the floor. Yeah.
A little bit of everything in moderation. You know, yes, the swings are great. You know, I know that, you know, as you're wanting to cook a meal, you need to make sure your baby's safe. Now, if they're not going to be safe on the floor, then yes, put them in something. Yeah, but not for long.
Oh goodness me, I'm looking back at my years of early parenthood and I'm in despair, Bernie.
No, but if you think about it, it's all those marketers out there that sell you the stuff. It's all the people that say, well, swaddle your baby, wrap them up, contain them, like, you know, but if you understand that the brain needs movement to develop, if you understand that, yeah, then you can make different choices.
I think that's a great takeaway. Yeah, the brain needs movement to develop. I think that's a great shout there. And the floor time one, absolutely. I'm thinking of my brother. He's got a 5. She's nearly 5 months now, and they're just getting into the floor time thing, tummy time, and all that. And she just started laughing, and she's moving around a little bit more now and wanting to be around. It's we do jump to these products and these restrictive packages, don't we? And
save yourself some money. Put your money towards a nice night out and a babysitter. Don't buy the gadgets. Just have a floor, like, and have mobiles. You know, mobiles that they can play with, toys that they can reach with. But the number of gadgets and toys, you know, you don't need much. They won't remember.
No. Oh, the amount of stuff we've moved on now is just outrageous. Yeah. Different, like I say, different methods of holding a human are insane. Yeah, it's unbelievable.
I bet you've got a big box of Lego though.
We have, yeah, blocks. Yeah, you can never have enough Lego, can you, Bernie?
No.
I still play with it too. Listen, let's try and get some points that us dads can start to take away and try and implement or apply, because you know we do want to try and support you on your mission, I guess, as well, to help break down these barriers and perceptions. So what can we do? What can expectant parents start to do? What can new dads do? What can we start to do more practically from today to start to improve our confidence in a physical sense with our kids?
Yeah. So the first one is be curious about what you're creating. Yeah. Learn about, you know, there are this many weeks in utero. Look it up. What's happening? Yeah. The next one is, once they've popped out, they can't move themselves. You will see some movement, and that's your reflexes. Yeah. But do some movement, lifting them, moving their arms and legs. Yeah. Touch is really important. So massage. You know, there are classes out there, but actually just getting your big hands and pulling down a leg like that, you know, gently, knowing that actually you're helping build those connections. Yeah. So that would be my 1, 2, 3 perhaps.
Yeah.
Carry them around in your arms. Carry them. Yeah. Carry them, pick them up. Once they're a bit bigger, you know, the good old throwing games, the flipping games, you know, within their body's capabilities. But all of those things are really good for balance and developing, you know, perception and knowing where their body is. You want them to know where their body is and feel safe. Yeah. So again, it's movement. So by carrying around. Take charge of floor time. Be the boss of floor time.
I noted that one down as well. I think that's a great one. It's a great shout. It's something we could do as dads, I guess, to proactively and productively, I guess, give the mom a break, but also get more involved at those early vital years. Because I think there's a big education piece there around the early years. I think that's where a big gap might be. And just remind us again about your book, Finding Their Feet. This is about that topic, right?
It is, and it's about the importance of feet. So, you know, my last message, well, actually, I've got 2 last. One is, if you're engaging with your child, stay off your device.
Oh, goodness, yeah.
Anyway. The last one is to keep the feet free. Yeah, as I say, the foot doesn't fully develop until the child is 15. So that's the bones. Yeah. So keep it free, because there's so many nerve endings in the bottom. Yeah. That they want to explore, and it's the end of their body. And if they're going to be walking, you need these feet to be switched on and mobile. Yeah. So even though those, you know, Nike Air little shoes like I wear, you know, are really cool, you know, don't go for a minimal shoe, loose fitting sock, that sort of thing, and allow their feet to be free, allow them to feel different sensations. So, you know, that's the basis of my book. And out of it comes the big gross motor skill movements and the reflexes and the milestones. And basically I talk you how the baby goes from there to being able to walk. So the feet are so important. And as adults, you know, a key message is that the more time you're in bare feet around home and that, the better your body will be. And that's, I guess, where I came from, was I had so many clients with problems that were stemming from the feet. I had to do something about it.
Wow. So even adults can learn through their feet in a way.
Yeah.
That's fascinating. Wow. Unbelievable.
Those things down there, can you feel your feet?
I can now. Just wiggle my toes. So it's a fascinating topic. It really is. And something that, you know, I want to start getting into more that topic around confidence and developing that for us dads as well. So I think this is a great place to start, and a really important bit of work you're doing, Bernie. So thank you for agreeing to have a chat with us today.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
In terms of connecting with you and finding out more, how can we go about that? Where can we see more about your project and your work?
Yeah, on my website, so www.bernielandels.com. I'm also in the next, now that the book's sort of hopefully out of the way, out of it's transpired this sort of, Mechanics 101 course, perhaps for particularly dads, in terms of what they can find. And I'll make that available online so that, it's accessible to everybody should they want to dip in and dip out of their baby's development and what's happening.
Super. Well, please do share with me the links as well. I'll put those in the article where this gets posted, the descriptions of the videos and the like. But yeah, hopefully we can help a few future or new dads with their baby development.
Well,
Bernie,
and help
thanks
the
so much
babies.
for. Sorry, go on.
Help the babies.
Help the babies, absolutely. And yeah, listen, Bernie, thank you so much for spending some time with us. It's been fascinating. I've made so many notes to go and make some sense of. I think it's so many takeaways and a really important topic. So Bernie, thank you very much for your time, and we'll see you again soon.
Hey, thanks, Rob. Really enjoyed it.
Brilliant.